Of course, though, the overall story continues to be how states, particularly the southern states right now, reopening their economies might fare as we move forward, with big issues there as, again, coronavirus still lingers out there, as we just got the update a few moments ago that we've now surpassed 3 million total cases around the globe, cases continuing to rise here in the U.S. as well. But despite that fact, we are seeing states move forward, notably Georgia, Oklahoma, Alaska, and South Carolina opening their economies, to be followed closely by Colorado, Montana, and Tennessee. And it has a lot of people wondering what those impacts will be and whether or not business owners actually want to move forward with reopening, considering all the risks still in place and no treatments yet on the table for patients struggling through COVID-19. And for more on the idea to reopen the economy, and particularly what business owners are grappling with, I want to get to Kristin Myers, who's been chatting with business owners on the ground in some of these states for what their thinking is. Kristin?
Hey, Zach. So as you mentioned, Georgia right now has really been leading the charge for reopening the state and the economy to businesses. But as you mentioned, they are not completely alone. So other states have decided that they are also going to be joining in, reopening their state, and their stay-at-home orders are going to be expiring at the end of the month. So April 30th, states like South Carolina, Oklahoma. Now, Georgia right now is doing this partial reopening. Other states will also be doing the same. Louisiana, partial reopening is South Carolina and Oklahoma. Sorry, I had them switched. Louisiana and Texas, for example, are one of those states that is actually going to be opening up the entirety of the state at the end of April. Now, what Georgia Governor Brian Kemp said is this: according to the Department of Public Health, reports of emergency room visits for flu-like illnesses are declining. Documented COVID-19 cases have flattened and appear to be declining, and we have seen declining emergency room visits in general. And he said that as a part of reopening his state. But we have a graph here from the Georgia Department of Health, actually, that kind of shows that, well, that curve is not exactly flattening inside the state, which causes some business owners to question the decision to even reopen the state at all. Now, on Friday, and we discussed this, gyms, hair salons, nail salons, massage parlors, etc., were allowed to reopen. Today, the 27th, restaurants are allowed to open their dine-in portion. Restaurants, of course, being allowed to do takeout and delivery only, but they're now allowed to open their dine-in portion. So to your point, I actually started calling some business leaders and business owners inside the state to ask them if they were going to be reopening and if they weren't. And a lot of them, frankly, were pretty mixed on the decision. I spoke to restaurant owners that said, listen, no way, we're not going to put ourselves at risk. We're not going to put our employees at risk. We're not going to put our customers at risk to reopen. And yet I just spoke with a nail salon actually just a couple of hours ago who said, actually, we are reopening, and they're taking the temperature, actually, Zach, of some of the customers that come in for manicures and pedicures. They're making them wear masks. They're making them wear capes and gowns. And they're saying, hey, we're still going to reopen, but we're trying to take as many precautions as possible. Some business owners are telling me it's a little bit weird that some of the businesses that are incredibly intimate, so imagine the closeness you have to get to someone if you are going to get a tattoo or getting a massage, the closeness required for a service or a business like that. And they're saying it's a little bit weird that the governor would even decide to reopen the state under those circumstances. And they frankly are blaming the fact that unemployment is slamming the entire state. We talked about this again on Friday. Almost 250,000 claims were processed in just 1 week. Over the last month, the Department of Labor inside the state processed almost 1.1 million claims. And so a lot of these states, their unemployment funds are just being completely slammed, and they can't afford to keep their states closed much longer. And some business owners are saying that is actually the impetus and the reason behind Georgia's decision to reopen the state. And they're blaming the governor for putting profits, essentially, and money ahead of the safety of some of the residents inside the state. We're going to have to see if those numbers start to spike in the coming weeks. We have, however, on the opposite end of the spectrum, here in New York, they've decided to actually cancel the entire Democratic presidential primary to avoid anyone getting ill to go inside of the voting booth. So we're seeing states take very different approaches to this whole coronavirus and to the pandemic. And we're going to have to see essentially which state is able to really, truly flatten that curve and keep as many of their residents and citizens safe.
Yeah, I mean, you got to have some pretty long nails to abide by a 6-foot radius to actually have that make sense. But Kristin Myers highlighting the very different approaches that states are taking through all of this.
Hey investors, Zack Guzman here. Are you interested in learning more about the markets and getting the latest financial news? Well, then click right here to subscribe to our Yahoo Finance YouTube channel. Get the latest up-to-the-minute market analysis, big interviews in the world of finance, and information on how to manage your money every day wherever you are.